Thinking about smart cities, we should define the main actors, their role, and what are the current trends in smart cities. Let's start with the main actors. We can have in here 3 different attempts. So let's start super theoretically. According to this super theoretical attempt, we have double helix, triple helix, and quadruple helix. What are there? What is behind this super theoretical statements? Double helix practically means we have 2 main actors in here. You have technological providers and you have municipal areas. In here, that's just the attempt in which the city hall is the customer, the technological providers, they are delivering the technology. Pure relation between the customer and the company that is delivering. From one side, we can say it's pure because of that it should be easier. Normally, there is a challenge in which we should define what are, for example, the needs. Many times for the city hall, it's hard to define their needs if they don't know what else they could expect, on which level they are. Because of that, very often, we use these days this triple helix, in which we have technological providers, you have municipal offices, and you have the academia. And in here, the role of the academia is to support the city halls with a perspective of how, which methods, which technologies can be used, are useful, or which of them might be useless. So the role in here is more like consulting. It might be academia, it might be external consultants, but that perspective is very useful, especially to assess not in what the municipal hall is good, because that everyone knows and everyone likes to promote it, but same important is to know what we are bad in as the city hall, to make it possible, to make the project implementation successful. And finally, we had the 4th attempt in which we have 4 players. We have technological providers, you have municipal offices, you have the academia or external consultants, and you have city residents or the NGOs. So the formal representatives of the city inhabitants who would like to participate in the process of decision making, who have some knowledge that helps you to participate in decision-making processes, and who are also welcome by the municipality office to support the decision-making processes because they see as the municipality office that it might bring to the whole project the added value. So we might have that 3 different attempts, and the one which is most beneficial for the city is the 4th one. That's obvious, as many players as the ones that we presented in here. So that 4 actors, that would be the most beneficial for the city. Then the next question that appears is, okay, we had the actors defined, but how the process of decision making should look like? Top down or maybe bottom up? If we think about bottom up process, that's the one which is super beneficial for the organization because you can collect the biggest amount of information, also this useful information, about what is happening in the city, about social perspective of the city inhabitants, about the perspective required from technological side, about perspective required from architectural and urban perspective, historical perspective. And the biggest advantage of this bottom-up approach might be also the huge disadvantage, because that time perspective in here is normally crucial. And that's the reason why most of the decisions, we make them top-down, just because they are faster. But from the other side, bottom-up gives the biggest amount of information. In here, we might also use the reverse order. So you do the bottom-up, information is collected on the top level of the city hall, and after getting this information, it's their decision. So they do it top-down next. And that's like the model version that should be used in the city hall. Normally, it's used in these most strategic projects. In the other ones, still top-down is most popular, just because the time perspective in here is crucial. We did the research as the team in here at the Gdańska University of Technology, which was investigating the 10 big city halls in Poland. And it was done for the consortium of big IT companies leading by IBM in that time. And when we did that research, part of that was that according to all the actors which were taking part in that process, the most important player on the smart city market are city halls. And it was defined by both technological providers, by the city halls, but also by the city inhabitants. Why? Because they make the biggest number of the decisions, they have the biggest budget, and even in the processes in which City Hall is not directly participating, like for example delivering the technology which is used by NGOs, most city has the most important data which is used in there. For example, the data about air pollution, about the roads, or any other kind of urbanism data. So in here, beside of having that four main type of the actors, we can fully say that the main actor are the city halls. And beside of defining in which areas it is important, we should remember about one thing. In business, when you make the decision should be rational. So when the company is making the decision, it should be rational. People might not expect that kind of the decision, or they might not understand the decision. But the assessment is done based on the results. In public sector, especially in city halls, it works differently. Because you should make rational decision, but you should also educate people why these decisions are rational. Just to give you the example, if you will decide that you will cut the number of parking places in the city center by 20% and invest a lot in public transportation and build the new bike routes, that's logical and rational decision. And we know, basing on the example, that it will work in mid-long-term perspective much better than the previous state. But practically, if you will do so, it's very possible that you will lose the next elections. And the person who will replace you, the first decision that he or she will make will be to cut the previous decisions. So your role being in the city hall is not only to make the rational decision, but to educate people why it makes sense. My favorite example how it was done in the New York City when Michael Bloomberg was managing the city. It was done in two ways. I mean, first of all, they were explaining before making the decision to the society how and why this decision is rational. When they were changing the whole road system in the city, closing big parts of the roads, making them open just for pedestrians. It was done in the way that they first presented the models, how it will work. And second, even more important, when the changes were implemented, it was supposed to do it fast and in full version. Not only to close the road for the cars, but in the same time to prepare it for the pedestrians, to make the places in which they can sit, to make it as final version as possible. If you just close the road for the cars, but there is no infrastructure for the people, at first it still might be empty, which will bring super negative perspective to the people looking on, was the decision right or wrong? So please remember, you have to make rational decisions, but also educate people why these decisions are rational. And few things about trends, because we said a lot about the actors, about the areas in which they participate, but what are the most up-to-date trends right now in smart cities? So the areas of smart cities in which the biggest amount of money is invested and which are most hot right now, we have few of them. First, it's everything about new mobility, new transportation systems, how to deal with the fact that we have autonomous cars, autonomous buses, we have lots of electric scooters, and the new methods which are appearing on the market every year. How to organize it, how to manage that. That smart mobility part, because that's how it's called, that's the one in which the biggest amount of money is invested, and which practically I can say is most interesting for the city inhabitants, because everyone likes to talk about how the transportation does look like in the city. Next, it's everything about the data in the city. First, about the integration of the data, and that's like the second most popular topic, and I would say the first one from the perspective of how important they are. So integration of the data, in which we have very silo approach right now in the city halls. And then the next steps, what we can do with this data. For example, opening the data. What is open data? How to open the data? How to build the business model on the open data. Going next, right now, the concept about which we talked the most at the conferences, at the business meetings, is everything about human smart cities. So the trend in which we, the people, should be placed as this key part. I mean, it sounds super cool, but it sounds super theoretical. Practically, it just means how to organize the projects in the way that the city inhabitants are in the first place, so we can involve them in the project. Everyone would like to do that, at least by describing the project. But how to, for example, involve the people in the project of building the new bridge? We have very positive examples how it might be done in a few countries, and that trend is growing very fast. And finally, like everywhere around us, it's all about AI. I mean, everyone talks about AI, but how to use it practically, where to use it in the cities. We have dedicated AI, we have dedicated, kind of saying very colloquially, kind of dedicated chat GPT just done by the city halls, for the city halls, which is filled by the information which was created and is stocked in there, which might be super beneficial, make the work much more useful and faster in there. So that's the list of the trends that we can say right now. They are the most hot. And while doing all the processes, like integration, like the process of storing the data, you should have in mind that you'll have them pointed out from all the sides. But please remember, open data. Remember, new mobility, how to integrate it. And finally, remember about the people in there and the possible usage of AI.